Good to see you all. It would be wonderful if you could do what we always ask and just to say hello in the chat and to just drop in the chat where you're from within the world, just so that we know who's here and where we're reaching. So in a moment, we will be starting. As is the thing with all of our workshops, very much hope that you're going to get a lot out of it. We do like questions. We very much like questions. So whilst we're talking, whilst we're exploring mental health in the workplace, it would be wonderful if you have any questions to give us, then drop them into the chat. If you want to speak to us as human beings, if you can just use the raise hand facility under the reactions, and I'll see you, and I will be able to pull you in at the most appropriate time to ask a question to us. As I say, we like the interaction. We've always got a lot to say, a lot to share. Hope you'll be sharing with us as we do experience and explore this this wonderful concept of mental well-being and good mental health in the workplace. We have a so other panelist has just arrived, so I'm just going to thoughts there. Brilliant. There we go. So we will be, as I say, exploring mental health in the workplace and well-being in the workplace, a very apt thing for today, this day and age. And I'm going to be the person MC. I'm going to be asking the questions. I'm going to be the person kind of guiding it and asking questions with to our two distinguished panelists here. And we have two wonderful people working with us today. It's Dr. Madeleine Ong and Mary Barrett. And I'm just going to introduce each of them. Dr. Madeleine Ong has over 25 years of corporate training and is an advocate of integrated health and is a beauty coach come educator. She's also a holistic psychodramatist, dealing mainly with emotional wellness and is a certified ABNLP master practitioner and clinical hypnotherapist. And on top of that, she's also an aromatherapist. She's also a human resource development corporation trainer focusing on mindset training, and she's also a lecturer for us at the LSCCH Asia Group. Handling adolescent and young adults has been her adolescents and young adults has been her forte. She has had an accomplished career as an operation executive with a successful track record overseeing regional marketing, personal development training in companies, and assisting in building business networking platforms for the business communities nationwide. She also served in Singapore Health, promoting the Singapore medical tourism and healthcare industry, involving many case management services to doctors and patients, holding responsibility for conducting patients' disease assessment and evaluation and formulating care plans for patients with chronic diseases. She's also being involved in clinical research, and she's assisted in the Fighting Diabetes program and other neurological diseases rehabilitation programs too. And she is the president of the Mind Body Medicine Association under the Federation of Complementary and Natural Medicine Association in Malaysia. And she's founder of Penang Parkinson's Support Group and actively involved in NGOs like the Multiple Sclerosis Society Malaysia. She's a volunteer in the Beacon of Hope Ministry St. Francis of Assisi in Kuala Lumpur and a volunteer in Tzu Chi International Medical Association. And our other panelist with us today is Mary Barrett, and she is a clinical hypnotherapist and an ABNLP certified NLP trainer who is an expert in emotional intelligence and communication skills. For over 3 decades, Mary has been educating, inspiring, and empowering C-suite, senior executives, and entrepreneurs to clear the chaos of their mind and gain clarity to make transformational, sustainable changes to increase both personal effectiveness and business results. She designs and delivers bespoke emotional intelligence and communications and coaching programs that inspire and empower individuals, teams, and organizations to achieve more self-confidence and self-belief, which enables them to have an improved, impactful result in all areas of their lives, not just the business side of it. She can be heard on her podcast, A Cup of Tea with Mary B, which showcases ordinary people achieving extraordinary things. And of course, with the added ingredient of Mary's inspiration and wisdom. So I'd just like to say a big and huge welcome to you both, a big and huge welcome as well to our audience. And what I hope is going to be an insightful and inspiring time for everybody. So Dr. Ong, Mary, welcome to this discussion. And I think the first thing that I want to ask you, and we can explore to begin with, we're using these words mental well-being. What do we feel mental well-being at work, or what do we mean by mental well-being at work? Mary, what's your perception?
Thank you so much for inviting me, Peter. I'm delighted to see so many people come along to hear us speak about this passionate subject of ours, and lovely to meet Dr. Ong too. So mental health in the workplace, I think it refers really to, as an employee, do you feel psychologically safe? Do you feel physically safe? Is there a social environment that allows you to perform at your best?
And that's an interesting word, safety. Psychologically and physically safe. Dr. Ong, what about yourself? What's your concept of mental well-being at work?
Yeah, for me, I would say that, safe. First of all, I would like to thank Peter for inviting me here as well, and also thanks to have
Pleasure.
Together with me. Of course, mental well-being itself refers to the state of mental, psychological, and emotional health, right? And while we are working, so it involves of happiness, whether you are satisfied with it, or it's a work-life balance we share all over in a work environment. So to build a responsibility into a positive relationship with the co-worker, and also coping with one another at workplace. So this is what I would say mental health well-being at work. Yeah.
And you mentioned the term work-life balance, which is something that everyone kind of throws around all the time. Oh, work-life balance, work-life balance. But what do we mean by work-life balance? Is there a formula for it? Is it an individual thing? What do we mean?
Can I share? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Balance is the state that, we are choosing the equality. We're setting the priority to each one between our work, our career, and also to meet our personal life. So, and overall is helping us in the way that we have more work or home obligations that we need to fulfill. And these are the things that we need to seek for a balance, whether it is driven by external or internal factors.
Mary, what about you? How do you conceive work-life balance?
I think it is a very individual thing. However, there are some general things that I very much work with my clients about. And I think it's actually about your energy and the return on the energy that you have. Human beings are energetic beings. And I always invite my clients to think about themselves as 4 rooms in a house. And how can they get balance in the 4 rooms of the house? And the 4 rooms of that house are your physical room. So are you getting nutritious food? Are you getting the opportunity to exercise? And are you getting fundamentally some good sleep, which we know is a critical factor? I also say, have you gone into the room of your mental room? Now, the mental room is where intellectually we're learning and growing. Now, what I would say is many people are spending a lot of time in that room and maybe not enough time in the physical room that they need, the extra sleep they need, etc. And then the other room that we need to think about on a daily basis is the emotional room, the emotional connection room emotionally to ourselves, within our relationships, within our family relationships, our friends relationships, and our community and tribe, our work relationships too. And the other room that we need to think about entering on a daily basis is our spiritual room, where we get time for some respite, whether that's through walking in nature, using our creativity, playing the guitar, listening to music, maybe yoga, maybe meditation, but something where you get the opportunity to have the balance to enter each of these rooms on a daily basis. And what I found in the main, that the mental room gets visited a hell of a lot through our work. The physical room, not so much. The emotional one is normally more of a drain than an energizer. And many of us don't get the time to visit our spiritual room. And that's when we don't have the balance in our life.
It's interesting you use the word spirit. Spirituality in this day and age, especially when it's considering with work, is sometimes seen as a bit of a dirty word. You don't talk about spirituality because I don't think people fully understand what that term means. A lot of people, when you say spirituality, they immediately jump in and think, religion. But what do you both think of that term with regard to the people you meet in the workplace and also just in general?
Can I just build on that, Peter? I agree. I would suggest, from my experience, 30 years ago, you couldn't use the word spirituality within the workplace. No. But I really believe now there has been a shift, I think, pre-COVID, but certainly post-COVID, that people need more purpose. People need to feel more alive. And I always think spirituality is being aligned with the universe and your core values of what you're here to do, and having that opportunity to develop that within a work environment. So as you say, it's not necessarily religious, or it can be, but it's really about being aligned with your values to be the best version of you within the one and only life you have.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
It means that finding a healthy equilibrium between the demand of the job and also the leisure times, the social connections, whatever we are in. But I do see that nowadays, the young people, they know how to enjoy, they know how to they are more aware on the work-life balance compared to my era. It's so different that we really work hard for it. Yeah, but now it's like there is a lot of awareness out there. It's just about having enough time and also energy for work, as well as also, and other important aspect in life between our family, friends, hobbies, and self-care.
It's interesting. Another word that you're using there, which is energy, which crops up a lot for us in the therapy community. What is your concept, or what do we mean by energy in that respect? And we talk about it with the work-life balance. We talk about it energetic work and energetic play. What is energy?
If you imagine yourself as a mobile phone, you would never dream of not charging your phone every night, because it's like our right or left arm. But yeah, as human beings, we require just as much energy, if not more. I always say, we don't want to be on red, we don't want to be on green, we want to be on purple. We want to be really supercharged, and that's the energy we need to combat life today. And that's by visiting those 4 rooms on a more balanced basis. You can get that energy you need, so you can feel you can do what you want to do.
Dr. Ong, what about you?
Yeah, of course, like what Mary mentioned, that we all know to strike a balance. In for me, itself, I used to, quite stressed up, but after learning about the setting the priorities, a lot of us, we are aware that even like you say, using handphone, when you come to your awareness, you know where to put it and where to put aside. The time management is so important. Yeah. So in a way that you become more conscious over your whatever you're doing, be more mindful, and at the same time, you know how to plan and setting up a goal properly. Yeah. So this is what I feel that to make it a balance.
One of those things that really helps with regaining balance is, of course, I'm going to say it because I am a hypnotherapist amongst other caps that I wear. But with regards to the world out around me and the energies I see, I use self-hypnosis a lot. I have that, it's almost like the reset button. And when I'm working with people who are having issues with the work-life balance and they talk to me about, I've got no energy left, it's important they find a way of regaining that energy. You know, as somebody who works with corporate clients, I learned very early on when we talk about power napping, and you know, you just have this mystery surrounding it. What is a power nap? I then discovered it was just self-hypnosis. Yeah, and it really does work, you know, with everybody listening to us today. One of the great ways of rebalancing part of your day is to practice some self-hypnosis. And my clients who, you know, at work, when they're at work, say, how can I do that at work? They go to the toilet, go to cubicle, shut the cubicle, do 5 minutes just of reset in there, then come out and you'll be refreshed. And what do you both do? What are your recommendations for helping people then who are depleted in energy during the day? What do you advise people to do? Dr. Ong?
For me, of course, as a hypnotherapist, we know how to address it. And of course, I always also encourage my client as well to manage the stress by how we're going to involve that. You know, we already learned about the mindfulness, like, you know, spending some time for ourselves into creating the awareness that where we are. And hypnosis really helped me a lot. That it helps me, even though I do not need to have a long hours just to keep myself quiet, but it's more into a relaxation time for me. And with that short 10 to 15 minutes, it really helped me to gain back all my energy and really helpful. And of course, with these other techniques that we have, like cognitive behavior therapy and mindfulness, it's really helping us in the lifestyle modification, you know, that we learn how to cope with it. And then at the same time, you have enough of time to between your productivity and also building better relationships as an overall.
Mary, what about you? How do you help your clients get that energy back in the day?
I get them to really think about, firstly, actually, how do they set themselves up for success at the beginning of the day? Because, you know, we need to be putting some in the bank earlier on in the day, because the rest of the day is going to deplete us. So I really encourage them and train them in some success rituals, which include things like meditation, self-hypnosis, affirmations, making sure that they're hydrated, making sure that they've got planned their day, that they've put their boundaries in place. So I really believe in prevention, not cure, as much as possible. So that's the first thing. And then throughout the day, making sure that they raise their awareness to how they're feeling. You know, we're not machines. We don't work like this. We work like this. And so where are the times where you are the most productive? Because we all got a natural rhythm. Where are the times where you're not so productive? So what are the boosts that you need in that time to give yourself the energy to get through the middle of the day? And then, you know, the research says around 3 or 4 o'clock is when we tend to have a dip. So rather than going for the chocolate or the caffeine, have some nuts, have some water, you know, have something that's going to revive you, but then sustain you for the rest of the day. So I'm always working to set up success rituals that help you from the beginning of the day all the way through to the end of the day.
So, I mean, we're talking a lot here about lifestyle.
Correct.
And it's an interesting, when you look at really busy people, some of them will have a very good lifestyle, and they tend to be the ones we don't see. Others have a pretty challenging lifestyle. You know, things like excessive alcohol drinking, poor diet, lack of exercise, sedentary time, and also the use of recreational drugs, you know, to get them through the day. I used to live in London, and pre-COVID, we had an office right in the center of the city of London in the business area. And I remember being taken around with somebody who was, he had an issue with cocaine use, because he was using cocaine to make him feel empowered, to get him through the day, and walking around and pointing out to me, oh, that person's a cocaine dealer, that person's a cocaine dealer. And then not the person sitting there, you know, looking, this long-haired, dirty looking person. It was a person in a suit. It was somebody smartly dressed. And that type of culture was coming in, and if you don't, you know, we're talking about energy, we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about, you know, something we'll talk about later is a sense of self. If we're drugging ourselves out, it can't last forever. We burn. So where do you, you know, do you, when you're working with people, what would you recommend? Do you recommend people look at their lifestyle and interact actively with changing it?
I certainly do. I work with very successful people that have their own addictions, whether it's to alcohol, whether it's to overworking, whether it's having no boundaries. And, you know, one of the first sessions I do with all my clients, individuals or teams, is do the psychoeducation around the 4 rooms of view. And really start to think about, because quite frankly, if you're not working on that physical room, which we know even exercise 20 minutes every day can help alleviate diabetes too, you know, exercise, and definitely the sleep. And that's what one of the things I love about having clinical hypnotherapy in my ginormous toolkit is that we've got specific tools for stress. We've got specific tools for anxiety. We've got specific tools for insomnia. And when we can target directly the issues, because what people are doing generally, you know, we're human beings, work in progress always. But what we're doing is using these alcohol drugs to take us out of a state that we don't want to be in. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to feel stressed. And of course, these drugs, whatever it is, alleviate in the moment, but then you're back to the same place. And sometimes exaggerated feelings too. So definitely as part of the process of working with me is we look at you holistically as a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Yeah. In fact, I do. Mary said was right. And I also feel that, you know, we all belong to a community. We need to get connected with one another. Sometimes, you know, that when you are alone, then you kind of think of different things. But when you have somebody to guide you, so hypnotherapy is actually helping me a lot when I need some guidance. And after that, it's actually helping me to move on my own, which is the self-hypnosis part. And from there, I would say that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, because eventually we need to guide ourselves, to help ourselves, because it's our own brain, right? And overall, it helps us to manifest so that we can move on better, and not only with our emotional symptoms that will help us, physically also it will help us to improve.
So how does poor mental health and well-being at work, how does it affect our mental health, and how will it affect our physical health?
Mental health issue, definitely we do not diagnose really. I mean, it's like it is not an issue, it's not a diagnosis that we are talking about. We are not talking about illness, but everybody having mental, right? And we have physical health, definitely we have this mental health. And therefore we need to just try a balance in our work, including our memory, our thinking, critical thinking, and also focus. So I would say that mental health here itself is helping us to make us complete. Even we have the whole being, so the overall well-being, let's say.
Mary, what about you? How do you see it happening?
Mental health issues within the work, for an individual level, you know, you have people with burnout, you have people with stress, you have people with addictions, you have people with weight problems, you have IBS, you have relationship problems, you have parental problems. It's huge, it's huge. And slowly, it's starting to get recognized, as Dr. Ong has said, that it's critically as important as having a broken leg. You know, this is something that needs to be looked at. But then if you look at it, that individual, so what's the impact of that within the workplace and productivity? If people are feeling stressed, if people feel uncertain about who they are, how they're managing, then productivity always goes down. It has a massive impact. I mean, depression alone has cost how many billions for people in 6 days, and the impact of that, the knock-on effect of that. So, you know, companies have a responsibility to set their employees up for success as much as they can within the workplace too, as far as mental well-being. And that's not just giving them mental well-being days off, but actually creating an environment that allows them to thrive in their working environment.
Interesting, you're talking about burnout a lot here in the UK where I'm based. There's been a lot of going on about our National Health Service at the moment. We've had strikes and all sorts of things. And one of the things that has been highlighted a lot in our general practitioners, our GPs, is the level of burnout that we see. And I remember quite a few years ago, the college, we were invited to the Wonka conference, and it was being held in Kuching. And we went in there, and one of the things that I was doing, we're doing one on pain and we did one on burnout. And we had something like 150 general practitioners in that room. And we just thought, out of interest, as part of what we were going to do, we'd hand a burnout questionnaire to them. And then whilst I was talking and Dr. Allen so was talking, we had one of our team collating it. And we found out that even then, and this is, you know, several years pre-COVID, that 90% of that audience, 150 GPs in that room, 90% of them suffered burnout. And so it's not, you know, one of the things that we do see, obviously, is a drop-off of people wanting to stay in a certain career, which is not good. Mental health issues there are, you know, they're depleting our workforce in certain areas. And also with the physical side of it, you know, we know we've got the mental health issues with stress and depression, burnout, and total breakdown, but also the physical issues that you've mentioned, including the building up of psychosomatic pains, and, you know, those little pains which we would normally be able to cope with because we've got a negative interpretation of work. It becomes an excuse that gives us what we call a secondary gain to, oh, I've got this pain in my back, I can't go into work. So we disempower and disable ourselves within that. And so, you know, we're talking about productivity. So, you know, poor mental health, poor physical health as a result of poor mental health, it's obviously having an impact on productivity.
Yeah.
And with good mental well-being, what's your, I kind of know what you're going to say. I hope I know what you're going to say, but what's your view on good mental well-being in the workplace? What does that do for productivity, Dr. Ong?
Of course, having a good mental health well-being is, you know, definitely help us to increase our productivity. Like you mentioned that the poor mental health affecting the impact of productivity. Yeah, having good mental health itself is helping us to have a job satisfaction, you know, employee engagement, that kind of balancing, and overall our job performance. But if, let's say, we are affected with this poor mental health, it definitely will increase the health care costs, and definitely, you know, the morale of the employees, it may be affected as well. And of course, the company's reputation itself may be also affected. So in this way, we see that, you know, the companies, we need to prioritize and also invest in employees' mental health well-being for overall the support, so that we can move on with a positive work culture. And that's how we can help to balance out between job satisfaction and also the healthy work habits.
Mary, what about you? What's your opinion?
I'd agree with Dr. Ong, and yes, and I would say that from my experience with my clients, it's very often that organizations have a set of values about how they look after their people. They're in the brochure, they're on the website, they're on the walls of the building. But when you actually enter into the business, the values are not actually carried out. And I think that's when they get a lot of distress, a lot of discord, but they're saying, I've joined this organization, but yet they won't let me have the time off to go to visit my children when they're having their play at school or their sports day, and these little well-being things that allow you as a working parent to balance. You know, the other thing is, you know, if you're a new parent and you're going back to work, you really need some extra support. You need people to understand that you're coming to work with sleep deprivation, and you need to have people more understanding and more caring environment. And, you know, when we have that caring environment and we build up trust, when we have when we build up trust with an organization, that's when productivity starts to grow. Give people the autonomy to, and it's one of the top values, people want autonomy to do the job that they know they can do and the freedom to do that. And that allows them then to manage and balance their day around their responsibilities. And the proof is there in the science that the results do go up. There's always a few people that always not do the right thing, but most people want to do a good day's job, and companies do everything in their power to stop them doing that.
And it's interesting, Prakash in the chat has said stress leads to depression. Oh, yes. And serious mental issues over time. Oh, yes. And one of those mental issues that I've certainly been seeing in my practice, and I don't know about both of you, is trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. I think, you know, we're always kind of used to thinking, oh, trauma is all about, you know, terrorist attacks and being hit by cars and sexual abuse and things like that, and family abuse. But we forget that abuse, wherever it happens, is abuse, and emotional abuse, and sometimes physical abuse in companies. If that is pushed up and pushed up and pushed up, it leads to trauma, it leads to PTSD, and in some cases the more complex PTSD, CPTSD. So what's your experience of working with traumatized people within the workforce?
Well, it is important for us to differentiate between the stress, trauma. You know, sometimes the exposure of the overall negative well-being, it will also potentially lead to a trauma for some cases. Yeah. So when someone has got experienced a trauma, you know, it can manifest in a very different way. So it is, you know, it's just like whether it's the ongoing stress or, you know, just like certain toxic work environment. So these will actually help, somehow will lead to a certain trauma in whatever we are looking in. And the symptoms also can ultimately, you know, it lead to acute stress disorder, and sometimes it can be severe as well. And a lot of different kind of stress, the trauma will eventually getting into it. And it's very distressing and it's disturbing. So even that kind of thing to helping us. How are we going to cope? How are we going to create a lasting impact? You know, that kind of things. And negative workplace experience, you know, continuously, like even you have this kind of bullying, harassment, discrimination, can also create a hostile work environment as well. Yeah, so this can lead to psychological trauma in some individuals. Yeah, so this impact of this traumatic experience, you know, is pretty subjective. Yeah, of course, we need to take note of that and getting it out and how to handle this negative experience. Yeah, so it's pretty important for us to be aware of what it is and take the right steps to address it.
Mary.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, Peter, there's the differentiate with trauma with a capital T and trauma with a little t. And if we think within the workplace, you know, I do have clients, you know, I work globally, Mary Barrett Global, I work globally with clients around the world, and a lot of them are heads of their country or whatever that is. So that means they, in theory, their workforce is awake 24/7. And they really have to put some very, very strict boundaries around themselves, because, you know, those emails will come through throughout the night, the notifications will go off on their phone. And this is the sort of stuff that leads to burnout, because you're always on the job. So it's so important that you give yourself permission to put those boundaries around yourself. And I mean, one client, you know, something had gone wrong within the compensation department, and she didn't go to sleep for 24 hours trying to sort it out. Now, that's a trauma with a T. You know, that she has got 3 young children. She was worrying, she was stressed, and she was quite, you know, traumatized by the whole experience by trying to get it right. So, you know, again, thankfully, we've got the tools in our toolkit to deal with that sort of stuff. But I think a lot of that stuff, technical term, just gets brushed under the carpet by ourselves and by the people we deal with, because we're on to putting out the next fire. We're on to putting out the next fire. We don't actually think about what can we do, like they do on aeroplanes. What do we do if there's a slight, you know, accident? It's always recorded, even though there's going to be an accident. So we always know that we could prevent it in the future. But most organizations are running so fast, they don't think about prevention rather than cure.
I think, you know, as Prakash has dropped into the chat, many organizations don't give an importance to mental health, or they give lip service to the concept of mental health. And, you know, I can only speak for the UK. We do have laws here with regards to companies can be fined if they are putting undue pressure on people. Guess what? Not much happens with that. It's like we have laws here for emotional abuse, and it's really difficult to prove it. And so, you know, there's an area there. So the awareness of it within the workplace is very, very important, and taking it seriously is very, very important, because, you know, you're mentioning, Mary, the client you're talking about. I would argue from a company perspective, you've got somebody in there working 24 hours straight to sort an issue. How is that person going to be as effective at sorting that issue out if they are exhausted?
Exactly that point. And carried on, got up because so work conscious, got up and carried on as normal the next day. You know, and you know, we know the impact of sleep deprivation. You know, what do they do to torture people? They don't let them sleep for 24 hours, because we know your talk can give you a rank and serial number. You know, I certainly, you know, if I was ever to have, please God, I don't, but ever have an operation, I'd be speaking to the surgeon the night before, on the day, and say, how was your sleep the night before? Because I certainly don't want to be working on my body or her on my body unless I know she's had some good sleep. Because of course it affects us. Of course it does.
Oh, we know that lack of REM sleep, which, you know, when you're stressed out at work, you know, and you don't sleep properly, so lack of REM sleep is a huge component in driving someone to psychological ill health. And, you know, there's been studies where they've prevented REM sleep, and REM sleep is the period of sleep when people dream. The studies have been shown that people who lack REM sleep can head into psychotic states. It's such an important part of our emotional health, and this goes back to the whole lifestyle element.
Yes.
You know, one of the things, we're talking a lot about the negatives of it. Let's pull things into a little bit more positive. What sort of strategies can we employ? You know, for people here listening to us, people here with us today, how can we help people to become more calm, more effective and productive at work? What advice can you give somebody to do that? Mary, what do you think you would do?
There's lots of things I could help with, but there's a few things. I'll do some key things. So the first thing we've got to learn to do as any human being is learn how to control that voice in our head. In a dialogue, that negative voice, which I have been given it a name and an animal. So I've got in my head, because we've all got one, haven't we? We've all got one. I've got a dog in my head that barks very loudly. And whenever he sniffs fear, you're, who do you think you are? You can do that. And you know, there's giving you a pile of work. And that person said that about you. And who did all of that stuff. And I've actually named him Roger the Rottweiler. So the first thing is find out what your inner voice is, give it a name and an animal, and just tell it to shut up, because you need to lead your life. That's a critical one that I work with all my clients with. The other thing is learn some breathing techniques. If you don't know any already, learn. And there are so many breathing techniques out there now, so many, because as Peter did train me, when we breathe through our nostril, nasal breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And of course, when we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, we go into homeostasis and calm. And the other thing, which is such a simple thing, but drink lots of water. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're hydrated. And if you just tell the dog in your head to shut up, do some breathing exercises, drink some water. If you just did one of those three on a regular basis, you will notice a difference.
Oh, give us a breathing exercise. Share a breathing exercise with us all.
Okay, all right.
A takeaway for everyone who go into work.
All right. Okay. So this one is called 3 breaths and a sigh, okay? Because when you sigh, that actually activates your vagal nervous system as well. So all good, all good. So I'm going to ask you to, can all play along with Mary B. I'm going to ask you to find something to focus on, anything you like, anything that's around you, on your desk or where you're sitting. Find something to focus on. Breathe in through your nose, out through your nose. Find a second thing to focus on, something different. Could be a pen, could be your phone, could be the screen. Okay, breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Now find a third different thing to focus on. Change your focus, have a look at it, breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Now this time, I want you, while keeping your eyes open, to look at your toes and take a deep, deep breath in all the way from your toes, in through your nose, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up to your body, top of your head, and go, ah, and sigh it out. There you are. You've activated your parasympathetic nervous system, you've activated your vagus nervous system, and you're guaranteed to feel more calm.
I'm too chilled to carry on. Dr. Owen, what about yourself? What sort of advice can you give people?
Yeah, of course, what we have done, the breathing techniques, and of course, the practice mindfulness is also very important for us to take a few moments just to focus on the present moment. There are so many things that we can appreciate. You know, there are so many things that whatever the food that we eat, the people that who prepare the food for us, you know, that kind of the mindfulness that we have, this kind of gratitude, and observe your thoughts and also your feelings without judgment. And by just spending some quiet time, just maybe 1-2 minutes, you will be good enough. If you can last for 5 minutes, it'll be even better, right? And of course, besides the practicing of mindfulness, you are more into the present times. It's like when you are worrying, you will end up, because you do not know and you are trapped in the future. And if you have that kind of fear and so on, you may have also a lot of things that you may trap in the past because of your past experience that causes you to have, you are not in the present time. So practice mindfulness will help us to be at the present moment, and it helps us to be happy. You know, when you are present, you are always happy and you always being appreciated with whatever you get. And of course, besides all this mindfulness, self-hypnosis, of course, is a very helpful strategies, right? To keep us calm at work. Just get some place to feel ourselves comfortable where you won't get disturbed. And maybe just take a deep breath, you know, and focusing on what we need to do. And besides, imagine some peaceful and relaxing scene, you know, maybe you are at the beach or a hotel or forest, whatever place you are, you feel good, and visualize yourself that you may you are going feeling that you are calm, I am peaceful, you are capable. So you can put in certain affirmation in it that you can handle any situation that comes to you. So it is just like practicing mindfulness is helping us to draw the law of attraction. The more we practice, you will actually manifest more things that's coming in you. So I would say manifest self-hypnosis is some kind of meditation with a goal, where you have set something you need to achieve with your, the positive affirmation. You're going to push yourself in, and from there, after you have finishing all these things, you have complete all the feeling, your confidence level, your accomplishment, and it is time for you to come back. So you just take another deep breath and slowly open your eyes. So by practicing self-hypnosis will also help you to reduce the stress, also stay focused. And in fact, it helps you to reduce all these negative effects that actually comes to you, not only emotionally, but physically as well. Yeah. So this.
Two things that I give people to do. You know how people are, when they're in work, sometimes they go into this very nasty negative cycle of rumination, and it's the same thought, and the I bet they're thinking this, and I bet they're that, and they're going to do this to me, and they're going to do that to me, and that just gets stuck there in your prefrontal cortex, going round and round and round and round, and you're getting. Well, what I recommend people to do, again, we're back to breathing for the first part of this, is take a deep breath in through the nose and just let it out. And then I teach them how to do this thing called rapid attention switching, which is getting them, and this is a distraction technique away from the rumination. So they breathe in and breathe out, and then they look around the room. So the room I'm in, I might count the number of blinds on the window here. So I'd be literally focused on 1, 2 in my head. Then I rapidly switch to the number of corners I can see, then rapidly switch to the number of colors on my desktop here, rapidly switch down to counting my fingers, counting my toes, describing what's around me, take another slow, deep breath and let it out. And that generally does quite good, is good at interrupting that pattern of rumination. It really does work. The other thing that I do, which is taken from trauma work, which I found really works nicely with all forms of anxiety, and it's NLPers among us, 2 people here, using the various modalities. We've got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 approach, which is when you're feeling negative, and you're feeling that anxiety, and it's originally developed to get people out of flashbacks. And at one level, you can say stress and anxiety, when it comes back, is almost a bit flashback, because you're looking back at stuff that's stressing you out. So with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 approach, it's you think, okay, 5, I need to look at 5 things, see 5 things, visual modality. And 4, think of, listen to 4 things that you can hear. 3, find 3 things that you can touch. 2, think of 2, or find 2 things that you can smell, and 1, find 1 thing you can taste. So it shifts you through. What this does is it shifts you away from that kind of dissociated, stressed feeling, brings you back into the present. Trigger the visual representational system, trigger the auditory, the kinesthetic, the gustatory, and the olfactory ones. So boom, pulls us back together. And they're little things that stressed out people in the workplace can do there and then without anyone knowing that they're doing that. So I think these are really useful things that we've been talking about. The same thing that we can also look at is, we've got people who come to the end of their working day is it to the end of their working day? How can we help people to switch off? So go from work me to life me, Mary.
And it's a really good point. And I think a lot of people, I'm going to use the word, suffered from that ability not to be able to switch off through COVID, because there was no distinction between work and home, because everybody was working from home. And I think we have to be very proactive about it, Peter. We have to give ourselves permission to switch off, because we know now, you know, when I started work, we had no email, we had no internet, we had no mobile phone. So the finish of the day was the finish of the day. But now we have to be proactive about it and give ourselves permission. And I talk to the leaders that I work with, that they are the role models on this. If they're sending emails at 11 o'clock at night to their team members, that they need to stop doing that, because the team member will feel a responsibility to send that back. So very much, if you're in a leadership position, how are you role modeling the switching off? And then there's different techniques. Now, whether it's, you know, setting the alarm, finish of the evening, physically closing your laptop, you know, changing your way home from work, making sure you've got a commitment outside work that you know that you have to go to, so that allows you to leave the work at a certain time. So I think it's really important that you're consciously aware that this really is your responsibility. Otherwise, people, if you want to work, people will let you work, and you really need to take responsibility for yourself here, particularly if you're a parent as well, because if you come home, you still got work with you in your head and in your heart, then you're not being present for your family too.
Yeah, agree with Mary. We need to change our focus by going out the room, or go outside, because when we are not able to think properly, when you're anxious, we need to engage to this survival thinking. Yeah, so it is important for us to divert our focus, and of course focusing on what which is more coming for us in a more best thinking. What is our best thinking, not a survival instinct.
Yeah, also it's about as well having boundaries, bringing up the boundaries, not just thinking them, but placing them there. One of the things I do with my stressed out clients who come because of stress at work, and a lot of it's built up since we've had COVID, because what are we all doing? Hello, me. We're working from home. We're working from home, so there isn't that, okay, I'm leaving work and I'm getting out of work and I'm shutting the door and I'm commuting back home. It's okay, well, I'm just going to nip down and get another cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and I'm back in the office. So one thing that's nice to be able to do is, I recommend people actually in the morning go for a small walk. Go out of the house, go around, depends what the weather's like, obviously, or if you've got a car, go and just drive for a bit, go around, come back in, and that's the start of your working day. At the end of your working day, to leave the area in your office, go out and go for a walk. That's what I do. Go for a walk, or if you're into driving, please be aware of your carbon footprint. But to be able to finish your day with that punctuation, and also these things here, these things called mobile phones. And okay, I've got an Apple phone. I'm sure all phones do it. I have different profiles set up, and I recommend my clients do that. So I have my general day profile and I have my personal profile. At the end of my working day, I shift over to a personal profile, which means I get notifications from my friendly social media. So I won't get those work WhatsApps popping into my thing, or I won't get notifications I've got an email. And then when it's time for me to go to bed, I have a do not disturb profile. And so I push that and I get no notifications whatsoever. And I use my phone, and I've got one of these Apple Watch things as my clock. But I don't want to be woken up in the night by my phone lighting up because somebody's WhatsApped me. You know, I'm in the UK, we're 8 hours behind Asia. The rest of my colleagues at the moment, after Sunday, warning for everybody, we'll only be 7 hours behind Asia. Our clocks change. But, you know, with all due respect, I love my colleagues. But in the middle of the night, I don't want to have a WhatsApp or a text message coming through, because you know, we know what it's like. It comes in, I think, what's that? So being able to switch off and do not disturb, all of those elements are really, really important with all of this. So there's many things. Mary.
I also think, Peter, it's about people having the confidence that it's okay to switch off. I think sometimes people go into such a downward spiral and worry and anxiety that they're running on cortisol and adrenaline the whole time, and they're on that hyper vigilant alert. So those notifications are going like this all the time, and their body is reacting to it all the time. So, as you know, part of our work is building those resources of confidence and self-belief and self-worth and self-value. So you have the confidence to go, actually, I've done a day's work. I've done more than a day's work. It's okay now for me to switch off my phone or not go to my WhatsApp. But I really do believe that does take courage and resilience.
Yeah.
And again, is what I love about clinical therapy is we can build that. We can help build that beautiful resource that you have already. We can amplify, magnify, and intensify that for you. So you have the courage to go, enough is enough. These are my boundaries. And, if you don't respect and value yourself, people won't respect and value you.
Yeah, very true. And Robin says in the chat, talking about what Dr. Wong was saying, we were saying about mindfulness. He says, being in the present, mindful awareness does not necessarily make one happy, does it? It depends on the present circumstances we're in too, does it not? Yes, I agree that being in the present helps us free us from worries and anxieties of the future, or even whatever that creeps in the past, but doesn't necessarily make us happy, as Madeleine suggests. It's not the bringing into the present is about resetting, putting in. You go into the present, you start to let go and become aware of the now, and then you can bring in other different perspectives. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Madeleine? Good. And Angeline says confidence and courage comes from psychological safety. Yes. Well, I apologize for the hanky. It's cold and flu season here, and I've got a slight cold, so you hear me coughing and sniffing there. But absolutely, if we can build a sense of psychological safety, a sense of identity. One of the things I always ask my clients who are stressed out and I would just work, and tends to result in a bit of an ab reaction most of the time, is I will say to my client, okay, who are you? Who's the real you? And you see them, I can't remember. And that's when somebody has no work-life balance. It's all work. They don't know who their real identity is. No, we work to live, not live to work, and that's an important balance that we need to have. And when we think about working with people, often we talk about goals, and it's important that people have goals with work and goals with life. What's your opinion of A, having goals for work and also goals for life, and B, how do you do it? How do you set a goal? Who would like to go? Dr. Ong.
Yeah, of course, setting goal is important for everyone. So we all know that, it helps us to stay focused and motivated. And it's like kind of accountable for our work. And definitely we need to have certain roadmap for that so that we can measure it along the way. And of course, how are we going to do that itself is that we need to have a bigger picture. We need to identify a bigger picture into, by understanding our missions and what we want to do, and the kind of the company goal, even a larger goal setting that we have. And of course, then we need to specifically find out what is this goal and while we're going to complete it, whether we can improve our own productivity as well as, so how are we going to develop new skills? These are the things we want to focus on, and definitely having a SMART goal, which is a specific, measurable, achievable, and it must be relevant and time-bound in this SMART. So in this way, we are able to help us to create a clear and actionable plan for us to achieve it. And by breaking down all these goals will help us to bring out into a smaller task. And from there, we will be able to carry out, as the kind of a action plan that we are going to do. And of course, that milestones, the timeline, and things like that. And regularly, we need to monitor ourselves. So by setting up all these goals, even in hypnotherapy, we also have set a goal in ourselves. So in this way, that is helping us so we can go in line so that we can get motivated and also satisfied with our job. Yeah.
Mary, what have you got? Anything to add to that?
Oh yeah, well, you realise you're talking to the converted. I've been setting and smashing goals with my successful clients for 30 years now. So goals are so important. Why are goals so important? If you don't take control of your life, somebody else will do that for you. And if you don't set a goal, it's like jumping into a taxi and the taxi driver goes, where do you want to go? I don't know. End up somewhere you don't want to be. So setting a goal, however small, is really important. The other thing that's really important about goal setting is that measurement, as Dr. Ong was saying. I'm a progressionist, not a perfectionist. So I love to measure progression and how I'm going, because each time we measure that tiny bit of progress, it starts to hardwire the success and we get more of it. What we appreciates. So again, using SMART goals and really thinking, what is it that you want? One of the first stages, I've got a 5-stage process with all my clients. And the first stage is clarity. What do you want? Not what you don't want, although that sometimes is helpful because it gives you the contrast. But what is it that you want? So get some clarity. And then when we get some clarity, it's amazing, as we know, the power of the unconscious mind, how random coincidences happen and some of your goals start getting true quicker and easier and effortlessly. So goal setting is a primary thing for you to do for yourself, with your children. We all need, for purpose, we need to have something to aim for, but it's important that we measure our success and our progress along the way. We're progressionists, not perfectionists.
It's interesting as well. We're very good at setting goals, and we're very good at thinking, right, what's out there. We sometimes forget how to get there. We sometimes forget the journey that we need to take to that goal. So part of good goal setting is not only, boom, it's out there, it's how am I going to get there? And what will happen when I get there? Do I actually want this? And sometimes we don't know that until we're getting closer to it. And so when I'm working with people, I'm always getting them to reassess their goal. Is, you're closer to it. Is this something you really want? If it is, we continue to work towards it. If not, then we have to have the courage to be able to say, no, it's not what I want, and I can reset my goal, I can change my goal. And sometimes that means going back to where we first started from. Did we read that situation properly? So, this goal setting is wonderful. Everyone should be doing it. But also the honesty within that journey is really important. And when you're getting close to achieving your goal, don't make the mistake of thinking, right, achieved my goal. Okay, what now? Get closer to achieving your goal and start setting other goals. And be flexible within it. That's a big thing. Because people who create very rigid pathways to this, they then can inadvertently create stress for themselves in getting to this rigid goal.
And from my experience as well, Peter, I'd add on that sometimes the how isn't as clear as it can be at the beginning. And actually, if we just think too much about the how, we limit our goal, we lower our goal. Because it isn't verbatim, but as Michelangelo said, as humans, what we tend to do is set goals we can achieve so we don't fail. And, you know, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And the feedback is we need to shift the goal. We need to shift the goal. So I think sometimes we can hamper ourselves with the logical how. Yes, we can't say set our goal and do sit in our backside eating a sandwich. You know, we need to take some action towards it. But the how can, as you say, we have to be flexible about the how. And we may change the route on the way, because as I say to the people that sit in my magic chair, be careful what you wish for, because when you get it, you might not want it. You know, so having clarity, but having that flexibility, I think, is very important without being too held back by the how. But we need to have some action for sure.
You reminds me of our founder, Michael Joseph. He taught an amazing goal-directed workshop. I'm very privileged to have inherited. But I always remember him when he first taught me and the group I was with. He said, our graveyards are full of people who have set fantastic goals but never done anything about it. And that's why the action is always so important. You can have an action of being at work, and you can have a goal of being at work and being more calm and more productive. But you've got to do more than just think it. You've got to start to live it. You've got to explore it. You can't always have a precise action plan. It's going with a particular flow, and as long as you're putting the effort into doing that, that's important. So, and we've got people who are in workforces, people with their work colleagues and so on, and they notice somebody is highly stressed and not coping very well. What can we do to become supportive co-workers for these people? Are there anything that we can do to help support somebody who is at work, who is going through mental well-being crisis? What can we do? What can we advise people to do?
Well, I would say that definitely we all need to be a good listener, right? And having a good listener is not only just having your ear open up, but it is more into listen with your heart. And sometimes we need to really lean forward to the person to understand what's the problem, rather than, just that when you are listening, you are not supposed to do other things. We have to sometimes do multitasking, and then without properly listen to your co-worker, your friends, right? So it's important for us to identify, are we really listening? So just practicing a simple listening itself is very important. It helps. And sometimes we do not want to interrupt their story, but just listen to them. Yeah. And then we can always offer what is the kind of workload that we can assist and what are the tasks. Then we will identify what is the issue here. And probably, you need to show up compassion, show your coworker that you care. Yeah, by offering them the word of encouragement and support. This will help them, that it is good enough than providing any other things. Yeah, sometimes a person just needs someone to listen to. So that, for me, I would say that be a good listener is so much important for us. And listen with your heart. It's not listen with your ear or with your eyes, and listen to other things. Yeah. So to be, you know that everybody having hard times, nobody is perfect, but it's just that when you have somebody to lean on to, you will feel really good, and that's really, really supportive and so important for them. Yeah, of course, there are so many other things, but I would say the first thing is practice the listening skills to identify your co-workers who are in this challenging time, what kind of things that we can provide them, and maybe sometime we can come up with something enlightening, brighten up the person's day. Yeah.
Mary, what about you? What would you
echo
say?
all that Dr. Ong has said. Active listening, with the head and the heart. And remember, it's not your job to solve anything. And it's been proven that 20 minutes of active listening can save lives. you know, when you do any suicide training, you know, the Samaritans or something, you know, active listening and it's being fully present. Now, what's really important goes back to some of our earlier conversation. You can only do that if you've got the energy, because if you're not feeling great yourself, have you got the time and the compassion to actually take on somebody else's challenges? But listen without judgment, listen without meaning to solve it. And you know yourself, sometimes just the fact you'd be able to, I call it blurbing, blurbing, what's out of your head, what's out of your heart, what's out of your gut, you feel better. And, you know, my husband, I was driving in the car with him recently, and he said to me, you know, of all this training you've done, Mary, and he's a leader in an organization, he went, there's one thing you've told me that's been very helpful. And I went, I think you'll find there's more than one thing. Anyway, the one thing he said was, when somebody's talking to me at work now, I just shut up and I go, anything else? Anything else? Because it's amazing. They end up solving their own issue and walking off, and they're very happy. So active listening, definitely. And if for some reason they don't want to share what's going on, I offer you to offer them the gift of journaling. So say to them, look, if you don't feel like you want to talk about it, get 3, this is by Julia Cameron, called The Morning Pages from The Artist's Way, fabulous book, 30 years old. And you just get 3 pieces of paper and you just write. Oh, Mary told me I had to write 3 pages. I don't know what I'm going to write, but I'll keep on writing. And you just write 3 pages and you take everything out there, you know, head, heart, gut, not to be read again, not to be shared with anybody. But I can guarantee at the end of those 3 pages, you will feel a bit better. So either be an active listener for somebody and allow them to blurb, or invite them to do their own blurbing on a piece of neutral paper.
I also think with being active listener, and Prakash has dropped this in as well, is part of being an active listener is you're not judgmental. Yeah. We don't, you know, as a listener, we don't judge someone. We're not there to do that judgmental thing. We're there just to listen. And as you said, with your husband, okay, anything else? Anything else? Let them, let them do, just get out there. It is data dumping, I call it. And I also have there's a neurological rationale as to why it works, because if you've got stress and you're just holding it in here and it's in here all the time and it's going round and round and round and round and round, it's just going through a certain set of neural pathways. They're not changing. The moment you start opening your mouth to speak, or you're going to write or type, the moment you do that, what's in there has to shift into different areas of the brain. You know, it has to go into the motor cortex. It has to go into various areas that are responsible for our comprehension of words and sentences and so on. So in shifting it, it starts a potential processing, which is, why I will, when I've got somebody coming into my therapy room, it's just I shut up. I just ask them a question. Okay, what happens next? What happens next? A number of times people have said, oh, I don't know what we've done, but I feel so much better. All they've done is had someone who is non-judgmental to talk to. And another good thing that I recommend, and I tell people, if you're with people at work and you want to share this with them, do at the end of the day, just do a little exercise from positive psychology, which is 5 good things. Write down 5 good things that have happened to you in the day. And when we say good things, they aren't the I've won the lottery, or this has happened, the bus turned up on time. The weather's lovely today. My dog licked my hand, that sort of just positive things. And so that also shifts an emphasis away from the stress and the negativity, law of concentrated attention, law of attraction, excuse me, whatever you want to call it, but it brings in a shift in the psychological balance here. And the more you can do that, the more you can then create a different mindset. I found that a lot of people I work with on that one-to-one basis, they then take this into their family. I had a comment earlier on the chat about, other family members and children, really important to manage their stress. And, it's a whole other workshop talking about stress in the in children and the pressures they're under. But my clients often take the 5 good things and sit the family down, and they do a 5 good things session with the family. So each person comes up from the day, 5 good things that have happened to them in the day, and it becomes a very positive experience that bonds and unites the family in a good, positive way, as opposed to anything else. So as therapists, we are therapists, what can we offer those struggling with mental health issues at work? Dr. Ong.
Yeah, as a mental health therapist for myself, that I do a different range of support to support for those who are struggling mentally mental well-being at their work issue. Especially we do kind of an assessment and diagnosis, because I'm a doctor. But of course, as a mental health therapist, they can also assess as well in certain assessment on how the level of the depression or anxiety and that kind of, the stress they are having. And then this will help us to identify what kind of issue, and we will help them into the correct therapy work. So of course, we do provide counseling and therapy as well. Therapy work like, the hypnotherapies, cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness, and even that kind of the stress reduction techniques that helping them to cope with their own strategies, how to deal with their own mental health. And of course, education is very important. Yeah, so by getting help from the therapist itself may not be enough, because the brain is yours, not the therapist. So we need to give them a lot of encouragement by finding out more and do more and take action. So once they know more, getting to know, of course, therapists can provide all kind of education and information to the person who need it. And this individual, they may help themselves develop certain strategies and how to manage it. Sometimes we may have certain symptoms that come up, and then if there is a need, we may need to refer to other professionals. And there are also a lot of other resources which is available, like psychiatric support group, even some employee assistance program. So these are the things that we can actually help them, to guide them, so they are not alone, right? And of course, the workplace accommodation, self-help. In terms of the therapies, for me, I always conduct mental health first aid, so that they can help the employees to support themselves, as a first aider in their own workplace. So this will help them to be more observant and to be part of the team, to provide love to their co-workers. Yeah, so this would definitely help in terms of reducing their stress level. And of course, I'm sure that they will be looking forward to more support. And this is a non-judgmental space for the individual. So in this way, as a therapist, there are lots of work can be done. So we need to do out this kind of stuff. And of course, most important thing is that if you are good, just improve the listening skills. Then we know where is the direction. Yeah.
Mary, what about you?
Well, I've got a strong belief that you are your greatest asset, and anything you invest in your mind and learning how your mind works, because when you can control your mind, you can control your results in any area of your life. So I've got a methodology using my ginormous toolkit of clinical therapy, master NLP, and years of learning. I'm an eternal student, as Peter knows. And so I have five C's that I take my clients through. That's individual or team organization. So first, clarity on what you want. How do you want to feel differently? What do you want to achieve? And then we talk about communication, and the first stage of communication, and I use a lot of work by Daniel Goleman and emotional intelligence, is your self-communication. We start to talk about that inner dialogue, that dog that's barking in your head, and how to manage and harness and turn that down. And we then talk about your external communication, about yourself to the world and then to the world. I then build on your courage, building your courage, amplifying your resilience, your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-value. So you've got that confidence to make those changes that you want to make. And when I feel that those resources that you have already, we just amplify, magnify, intensify, then we start doing something. I've made up a word, because J.K. Rowling made up words. So I made up a word, and it's called clearing. So what we do is clear out all the fear. And many of my clients call me the Marie Kondo of coaching, because I clear out all the crap and leave you with your joy. And so we do some clear, and that's the regression work, getting rid of some conditioning that isn't helping you anymore. And I really work in you as a human being and who you are now and where you're going in the future. And the other very important thing, which we sort of mentioned and touched on today, is learning to celebrate and measure our progress, not perfection. So we're hardwiring our celebration, because what we appreciate appreciates. So I work with people from all cultures, all genders, all ages, but someone who wants to make the change and learn and grow, then I can help you do that.
Wonderful. And I think, it's for people wanting to become a therapist and to engage with helping others. Certainly what we offer as a college, we've got a variety of different courses that we use. And the CH within both the LSCCH and the LCCH Asia names is clinical hypnosis. It's a core of what we teach, and we have courses that started from very beginners, working through teaching you all the skills. You touched on the word regression. We've been talking about behavior with regards to lifestyle and all of that. This is, elements that we will teach, how to work with those, but it also goes beyond that. We've got courses with CBT, so we do teach cognitive behavioral approaches to challenge the erroneous belief systems and the erroneous belief structures that we're holding on to up here. For the more intense stuck issues, we've got an approach called ego state therapy. And I know John Paul Higginson and myself are doing a workshop very shortly on that. So for anybody interested in finding out more about that, you are more than welcome. It's another one of our free workshops. But it allows us to deal with people who get stuck in a bit of a loop, and there's a part of them that's sabotaging their approach to well-being, to healing, to work. So we've got a very powerful approach that we can teach with regard to that. We've also got EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is more than just eye movements, but and that is an amazing approach for dealing with people who've got blockages in the way they're thinking. It's not just something that's hidden, but they've got a distinct blockage and they're stuck in that traumatic experience or highly stressful experience, or they want to manage their eating but they just can't. So what's going on? So we've got those approaches that we can use there with that. We have a course called the ABPP, the Addictive Behaviors and Psychological Pain course, that we look specifically on things like bereavement, and also looking at addiction to various things, not just drugs, but also to partly touch on the concept of work addiction, gambling addictions, and so on within that, and it's building up that understanding there. So hopefully people have, if you're wanting to think about adding skills or become a therapist, take it into your workplace, do talk to us. We've got both Adam and Riska here, who've been dropping contact details in the chat. So very much, if you want to find out more, do talk to them. Excuse me. If you're seeking therapy, well, do talk to them as well, because we have a centre there, and wonderful Riska's just seen her waving at us there in the background. So we've also got a therapy centre there for people who want to, and of course we are always available for giving talks and presentations on stress and the impact it can have on work, and how we can help people overcome that, to organizations. We're very well used to doing that. So I think, from my perspective, it's very much a huge thank you to both Mary and Dr. Ong here for being a part of this. And I know we will see each other again online, which will be wonderful. Thank you everyone who's been attending. It's been wonderful to see some new people here, some old friends. Great to see you all. Thank you for the team in the background, to Riska, to Adam. I think we've got Sheer in here as well, and I saw Dr. Asher in here at one point as well. And if I've missed anybody else out, I do apologise.
Thanks, Peter. Great session.
Wonderful. Thank you. And as I say, this, we will have a recording of this coming out shortly. I do my own podcast, and I will be putting this up as part of that as well. So so you can re-listen to us. Keep an eye on my on our website, and also keep an eye on my LinkedIn page, because it always goes up on there. So both of you, thank you so much for this wonderful session. Much appreciated all. And to everyone here, have a lovely evening. If you're in KL, have a lovely night if you're in Australia. And my day's just starting here in the UK. I'm going to go and have breakfast now. So see you all very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.